Hello, everybody. My name is Kelly Higgins. I am the Executive Director for the Autism Community Connection. Thank you for joining us today. I have Lesa Paddack with insource. Lesa, hi, how are you?
I'm fine, Kelly. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you for joining us. A little bit about the Autism Community Connection. We are a nonprofit organization. We serve individuals and families affected by autism in Johnson County and the surrounding counties. We have several different kinds of programs. We have our Young Adult Connection, which is for individuals with autism over the age of 18. Our groups meet once a month, so it's kind of like a good social group. They learn about friendships, they focus on life skills, social skills, and soft job skills. We also have a program called My Summer Journey, which is for teens with autism that is 13 to 19, and it usually happens in the month of June. For about next year, we're preparing for 3 weeks, which is great, from Monday through Friday. And again, they focus on friendships, they work on social and life skills, and also good chance to go out in the community and just have a really good time together during the summer. We also, as an organization, help families with individuals with autism and family members if they're needing counseling sessions. The organization funds up to 5 counseling sessions with 2 local counseling centers here in Greenwood. We also support families in a way that I get a lot of phone calls and emails and messages from families looking for information about autism or looking for resources or looking for providers, and I help them find the information. Another thing our organization does is we have a lot of social events throughout the year. In April, we have our family game night. Coming up in September is our trivia night on September 10th at the Moose Lodge. It's our annual fundraiser. It's going to be a lot of fun. The registration's open for your trivia teams. And then in October, we have our trunk or treat, which is October 22nd at the New Hope Church parking lot. We'll have a bunch of resource vendors at the event. They'll be decorating their trunks, handing out a bunch of treats for the individuals, and the families get to get information about autism and resource and service. And I know Lisa's going to be there for insource, so that'll be a fun time. And then in December, we have our Breakfast with Santa. That's December 3rd at Emmanuel Church. It's going to be from 9 to 11. The kids get a chance to play some reindeer games, enjoy a nice pancake breakfast. They get to meet Santa and do some carriage rides. It's a really fun time. So, thank you again for joining us, and I'm going to hand this over to Lesa.
Thanks, Kelly. Well, thank you all for coming tonight. I appreciate it very much. I am actually a board member of ACC, very proud of that and happy to be contributing to the community. But tonight I am here for insource. So I am one of the assistant directors at insource, and I'm also the insource parent liaison to the Department of Education. So tonight I wanted to have an opportunity to talk with you about preparing for your child's special education conference. So this presentation is actually an hour and a half long. We only have an hour. So you will see that I skipped through a few slides, but no need to worry because you'll get to get all of the slides. So I'm here tonight. I've been with insource for almost 20 years between volunteer and a paid staff. And as I stated before, I'm one of the assistant directors and the parent liaison to the Department of Education. And part of what we want to do is to assist families in understanding that special ed process. So tonight I'm going to talk about preparing for your child's special education case conference. So you will see this tiny QR code up there. Please scan that if you would. You will hear a little bit more about insource in a moment, but we're a nonprofit organization and we receive state and federal funds to assist families to understand the special ed process. So with this tiny QR code, you will get the sign-in sheet, the resources for this presentation, training survey, and certificate. So please scan this and QR code or go to that website because it is something that we do need since we are state and federally funded. Next, this is a legal disclaimer. All really that I want to say about that is I am not, nor is anyone who works at insource, an attorney. Okay, I'm not giving legal advice. insource does not have legal services. And if you need an attorney, then you need to reach out to an attorney. What I am doing here is just for educational purposes only, in order to give you some ideas of how to be an active participant in your child's case conference and things you can do to prepare for it. Here you will see our mission, vision, and belief statement. And insource, as I stated before, is a grant-funded parent training organization, and it's part of the national network. Most of the insource employees are parents or have family members with disabilities, and insource is always free to parents. And we are here to be the pivot to the process to help a family understand about that process, their rights and responsibilities, and to be an active member in their child's special education journey. You might ask, how does insource help? What do we do? Well, our main office is located in South Bend, but we support families statewide. We have regional staff that are located throughout the state in the areas where they live, and this allows the regional staff to establish and develop relationships with families and schools they work with. We have been working on our website, and when you go to it, you will see that the majority of our areas are now broken into school districts. We provide phone and electronic assistance, and we also attend case conferences and 504 meetings when we are needed to help facilitate communication. We are one of the last parent training and information centers in the whole country that do still attend meetings with parents. We also have a number of online learning opportunities for families, community stakeholders, schools, anyone who'd like to take part. Insource staff assist in understanding parents and students' educational rights and responsibilities. We provide information about the special education process. We help families and schools work together and develop positive working relationships. And most importantly, we help parents and students become better advocates. Here are just a few of the things that we will cover today. And Abigail, thank you so much for being here tonight. And what we will do is, if you have a question, put it in the chat, or you're welcome to unmute. And we want to try to make sure that we answer any questions along the way. So some of the topics that we will cover have to do with parent involvement in special education. What is a case conference? How do I prepare for it? Communication and coping skills, and resolving disagreements. And my intent today is to help anyone who hears this be better prepared to attend their child's case conference and to validate their role as an equal participant in the process. Okay, so as you all know, there is a process to a case conference. And navigating the course, the companion guide to Article 7, which is Indiana special education law, refers to procedural safeguards as the rights and responsibilities of the parent and schools. These procedural safeguards, which are outlined in Article 7, are designed to promote parental participation in the special education process, to provide a means to work out disagreements between parents and schools, and ultimately to ensure that students with disabilities are provided with a free and appropriate public education, or you might hear it called a FAPE. So there are particular times that schools are required to notify parents of their procedural safeguards in writing. So there are laws, IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and Article 7, which is Indiana's special education law. And there are guidelines and requirements. And it is important for families to actually read those procedural safeguards so that they do understand what their rights, roles, and responsibilities are under the law. So the opportunities that are required to provide procedural safeguards are these times. At least one time per school year, usually at the annual case conference. The first time parent requests or student is referred for an evaluation. First complaint filed per school year. First due process hearing filed per school year. The date a student is moved to an interim alternative setting for a disciplinary change of placement, and anytime the parent requests procedural safeguards. So sometimes Parents will laugh and say, oh, I have enough of these to wallpaper the bathroom, but they really are, it really is an important document. And it helps you understand the process and what to do if you are not in agreement. So next, we're going to talk a little bit about the case conference committee meeting. So the notice of a case conference committee meeting is much like an invitation, though it must contain some specific information, and you will see that listed on the slide. Date, time, and place of meeting, the purpose of the meeting, the names and positions of the participants, and a statement that the parent can bring others with them. This is a very important point, that as a parent, you are allowed to bring anyone with you that has knowledge of the child. And it is important many times to recognize that that person can be an additional set of ears, can take notes for you, and can help explain that process along the way. And sometimes that's someone from insource. Sometimes that's a friend or a family member, but it's important to know that you can invite anyone you want to the case conference. So some other important points are: a case conference committee meeting must be scheduled at a mutually agreed upon date, time, and place. So it is important to know that you are not to just be offered one day, one time. The parent must be given notice of the case conference meeting early enough to ensure that one or both parents have the opportunity to attend or to request to reschedule. In addition to details about when the meeting will take place, the notice must also explain the purpose of the meeting. Is this an annual case conference review, a transition conference, a revision, a move-in conference? It must also include the name and title and positions of the public agency representative, as well as the other expected participants. Additionally, it is good if a parent can attend in person, but at this point, many times parents are attending virtually, and that is totally allowable, as is by phone. One thing to note, that the written notice regarding a student's initial or very first case conference must include all of those components, but some additional things. The evaluation for an initial case conference, that must be provided to a parent at least 5 days prior to the case conference. This must be. It must also describe and give findings of the evaluation basis for any proposal of action that may be proposed by the school with action. When you go to a case conference, you want to remember that you're an active part of that conference. So these are going to all be discussion points at case conference. So you might be asking, well, who should be at my child's case conference? Well, you see a list of those participants here. This lists the people that are required to be at the meeting. You may bring additional people if you would like. And sometimes the school puts on the invite some additional people. If you do not know who the school is inviting, you have every right to ask who this person is, what their title is, and what they do for your child. Required participants must be excused through a formal process. So it is very important, and you'll hear me say all the way through, it is important to be communicating with the school ahead of time, letting them know who is important to be there, and also thinking and having that discussion about, are you interested in signing an excusal if someone needs to leave early? The case conference committee meeting must be scheduled, as I stated before, at a mutually agreed upon date, time, and place. Okay, parent must be given notice of that meeting early enough for the parent to reschedule it. Okay, and there are required members to make it a case conference committee instead of just a parent-teacher meeting. Okay, so there are some definitions to some of these roles. So you will see the role of instructional strategist listed on an invite. And that is someone who's able to explain the meaning of evaluation results, how to adapt instruction for student learning. They may be any member of the case conference committee capable of these responsibilities. A general ed teacher, someone with knowledge of the general education curriculum, if the student is participating in general ed, and the majority of students will have some time in general ed. And even if the student isn't, it's always wise, if possible, to have a general education teacher that can be there to discuss grade level material. And the teacher of record, that is the special education teacher, the teacher who is licensed in the primary area of disability for the student. If the student is being served under speech only, then that may be the speech therapist. Okay, so we talked a little bit about who needs to be present. We talked about also making it clear what you need, and we'll talk about that again, because communication is vital to have a well prepared, well-ran case conference. So there are times when there will need to be participant excusals, and you can see these opportunities on the slide. Under some circumstances, members of the case conference committee can be excused from all or part of the meeting. Excusals require that parents be notified in advance and agree, or the meeting may have to be rescheduled. Participants who need to leave early must have school and parent permission in order to continue the meeting without a required participant. So what is supposed to happen is when there is a group of individuals invited, then if someone cannot attend, there should be an excusal form sent to the parent ahead of time. If a parent wants a participant at the meeting who cannot attend or cannot attend the entire meeting, parent may ask to reschedule the meeting. I would put a caveat in there. This deals with certified staff. So a parent can ask for a non-certified staff, such as the para, to be present, but that is not a requirement for the school to provide. Many times what will happen is the teacher of record is the one that the parent is to discuss the concerns with instead of the para. So some excusals may be on the notice of the case conference committee requesting parents' permission to excuse. So make sure that when you receive that notice of case conference, that you look at what the purpose is, you look at who's being invited, and you look at who they're stating needs to have an excusal. And additionally, the slide here talks about when someone can be excused. If the member's area of curriculum or related service is not being modified or discussed, the member might submit input in writing prior to the meeting and have someone else give this, or the member will attend the portion of the meeting where their area will be discussed. Okay, so being organized can help you advocate more effectively for your child, and it can make the case conference less stressful. Many people no longer keep everything in a paper form or a binder as we did 20 years ago, but they do it electronically. No matter what method you use, whether you use a notebook or you keep all of your information in Google Docs or in a Word document or on your phone in notes, it is important to try to come to terms with the things that you want to discuss at the case conference and prioritize them. If you haven't started a system to organize these files, it is really wise to do that. And as I said, most people probably do that electronically now. Most IEPs are sent, electronically. Of course, you can print any of those things out, but whatever method you use, you want to have some kind of system to organize your thoughts. Okay. You can request from the school to see your child's educational record. You have that right. And it is wise to keep a chronological record of calls, visits, and emails. That way you have an idea of what you have discussed and what your concerns are. Additionally, here are some other things that you might want to keep in what we call a home file, but that does not have to be all on paper. Most people, like I said, are doing it electronically. One of the best things a parent can do is to organize their thoughts and to organize the material that they want to discuss at that case conference. This also can help you when you need examples and can make things less stressful overall. Homework samples, graded tests, um, state and local assessments and their results, behavior information. It's wise to have that information easily accessible so that you can discuss it for the case conference. Here are some of the common concerns that we hear from parents regarding their child's special education and related services. Additionally, when you look at the formal complaints that are filed with the Department of Education, a parent feeling that the school is not following their child's IEP is probably the very number one reason for complaints. So, as stated here, my child has an IEP and is still not doing well in school. I think my child needs more services. I think the school's not following the IEP. Those are some of the concerns that we deal with in our office. So, evidence for concerns. So, concerns must be based on evidence. So, it's important that you have your facts and evidence to back up your concerns. We all know that we have feelings about things, but we want to have data. We want to have facts so that at the case conference committee meeting, then when a parent or guardian is looking to ask for something to change, some additional services, or perhaps there's a concern that services aren't being given, that then you have the facts and the information that you are making those decisions on, okay? And here are some things that you can look for. You can take a look at the grades, the homework, the local and state assessments, information from the teacher, notes that you've been getting, reports, and of course, outside evaluations must also be considered. Being able to cite specific examples helps parents' concerns be viewed as more credible. And the progress monitoring data on goals is very important to show whether your child is progressing or not on the goals. I'm going to skip over this very quick story for the sake of time, but this story was about a parent that had a concern about their child's reading and what was going on. In order to skip over to show you our worksheets of concerns, which when you scan or go to that website, you will get a blank worksheet of concerns, and it just helps you walk through what your concerns are, what the interventions or accommodations are, what the agreements were reached, okay? And you can print it off and you can work through it. You can take it with you to the case conference, but it's a way to organize your thoughts and concerns that you have and write down agreements. Okay. So at this point, we've reviewed your child's school records, documents, areas of concern to be addressed in the upcoming meeting. One thing I always encourage families to do is to consider getting their thoughts together before the case conference and emailing over some of their thoughts, what their biggest concerns are, okay, what they would like to see happen in the meeting, because it gives your case conference committee team an idea of what you're thinking, right? Many times a family will receive a draft of the IEP in the mail or electronically. Take a look at that, go over it, look at the present levels, looks at strengths and concerns, look at the goals. Take a look at the last present levels of performance and the progress monitoring to see if you feel that your child is making progress. Additionally, let the school know if you plan to bring someone with you as a courtesy. If you bring anyone from insource, we are required to let the school know that we are coming as a courtesy. It is helpful. There is no reason for a gotcha approach. We're all there to brainstorm and try to help the child. And as I said, it often is beneficial to send the school your list of concerns prior to the meeting so that they can be dealt with directly. And those concerns can also be pasted directly into the IEP in that parent area of concerns. So the final preparations, you do want to confirm the date and time of the conference, that it works for everyone. Ask how much time is allotted. If it is only 30 or 45 minutes and you are pretty sure that you've got some significant concerns, then you probably want to let them know that, okay, if they only have 45 minutes set aside, then when you get to the conference, you're going to have to set up a second date. Think about what you wish to say, going back over your documents, your concerns, looking at the past IEP, seeing if your child has made progress over this year. It's very important to structure for that short meeting what you want to say and what you want to discuss. And of course, bring your list of questions, concerns to the meeting. During the case conference meeting, remember that parents are equal members of the case conference committee. That is one of the principles under IDEA, is parent participation. Make sure that you know everyone and you use active listening skills. Asking open-ended questions is very helpful. Asking things like, what does that look like? Tell me what happens during that time. What are the difficulties or the successes that my child has during this time? Questions such as, it looks like there are difficulties with this goal, or even at times I feel that my child is not progressing. So you want to share your concerns, because this is the time to put it forward for your case conference committee, so that hopefully you can have a meaningful and intentional conversation, and that if there are things that need to be changed on the IEP, hopefully that can happen. If someone needs to leave or the meeting goes longer than expected, you can ask to reconvene. During that case conference committee meeting, know that you are the equal member of the team. Be, kind and courteous, shake hands, which maybe we don't do that during COVID anymore. Introduce yourself. Be mindful of your body language. We say that to school staff, we say that to our staff, we say that to parents. Be mindful of your body language. Additionally, establish how long the meeting is expected to last. And as I said, if it goes longer or you're not done, you most certainly can ask for everyone to bring out their calendars and set a date to reconvene, because there's still more things that you have concerns about. Finalizing the IEP. So of course, there's a difference in an initial IEP and an ongoing IEP. So once the case conference committee is met and the IEP has been developed, it must be finalized. School has 10 instructional days to provide parents with a copy of the proposed IEP for review and consideration. There are some differences, though, between the first or initial IEP and revised IEP. If this is the first IEP, parents must sign consent for services before services can start. If the parent disagrees with the school's proposal, they must notify the school of how they wish to resolve any disagreement. Parent needs to act as quickly as possible to challenge the proposed IEP, because their child at this point will not be receiving services. This disagreement could include a disagreement about eligibility for special education services. Perhaps the school feels your child's not eligible and you feel they are. One option would be to ask for an independent education evaluation at the school's expense. But you could also ask to meet again. You could also ask to go to mediation. Parents have the right to disagree with what the school is proposing. But for an initial IEP, no special education services can get started without the parent's consent. And later on, we will discuss the dispute resolution options. Now, for a revised IEP, it is different. Once the case conference committee has met and the IEP has been developed, okay, and this is an ongoing IEP, so there are some differences. So school still has 10 instructional days to get that IEP to you. You have 10 instructional days to contest that IEP. And contesting does not simply mean I don't like it. It means that you're requesting an action. You're requesting another meeting. You're requesting a facilitated IEP meeting, mediation, or due process. Okay. You must contest and challenge that IEP. If you do not challenge the proposed IEP for an ongoing IEP, then on the 11th day after the parent receives a copy, it will go into effect. Just saying you do not like it is not enough to stop that ongoing IEP from going into practice. Parents have the right to disagree with the FAPE that school is proposing. That is important to know. If you disagree, then you can challenge the proposed IEP, and Article 7 gives the parent the responsibility to make the school aware that they disagree. Parent must propose how they wish to work through that disagreement, whether it's another case conference, it's a facilitated IEP, it's mediation, or due process. Additionally, anyone in the case conference committee can submit a written opinion. And that is when a parent is not necessarily contesting the IEP, or someone is not contesting it. And basically, either a member of the case conference committee wants to write a written opinion, or the parent does. That is not the same as the parent contesting the IEP, okay? But it is a written opinion of something they don't agree with, and that will go into the child's educational record. If a parent does not agree with the proposed IEP, they need to contest it and say what their next action is going to be. Okay, any case conference member can submit a written opinion about a proposed IEP within 10 days after a meeting. This can sometimes be used for a parent who may be in a substantial agreement with a proposed IEP, but maybe they don't wish to delay implementation, but there are some things they're not totally in agreement, but they wish to express concern about an issue. So they are not willing to contest it and take an action, but they want the school to know that they are really not in agreement with something is bothering them. They could write that written opinion, but it's important to know that it's not the same as contesting. And any case conference member could actually submit a written opinion about something they feel strongly about dealing with the IEP in that case conference. Okay, implementing the IEP. So when it comes to a student that is getting ready to turn 3, on the student's 3rd birthday, if the 3rd birthday falls during the school year, then that IEP needs to be ready to be implemented on that child's 3rd birthday, okay? And that IEP is to be implemented no later than 10 instructional days after the parent consents to the student's initial IEP is received back from the school, by the school. But for a student who is turning 3, that IEP needs to be done and completed so they can start. So it is very important for that transition meeting to occur on time in First Steps. If a student is coming in that's not been in First Steps, they will go through that 50-day evaluation period, okay? But when they're transitioning from First Steps, the IEP must be ready if their birthday falls during the school year. The 3rd birthday falls during the school year when the student is transitioning from First Steps, that student is able to go in on their 3rd birthday, okay? So a revised IEP, as we have talked about, for an initial, there has to be a signing of consent or services cannot start. For a revised IEP, parent has to contest and ask for an action. And if they do not, that IEP goes into effect on day 11, called the 11th day rule. In all cases, parents have the right to disagree with what the school is proposing. School has a responsibility to propose a FAPE, a free and appropriate public education. Parent can disagree with that. Parent can suggest what they think a FAPE looks like. But if the parents disagree, they may challenge the proposed IEP. Article 7 gives the parent the responsibility to make sure the school is aware that they disagree. And if the parent challenges the implementation of the IEP by requesting a meeting or mediation, and that method doesn't resolve the issue though, for an ongoing IEP, the school may implement that IEP again on the 11th instructional day after the meeting or mediation, unless the parent requests a due process hearing. So in general, family gets the IEP back. They have 10 instructional days. They ask for a meeting. They've gone to mediation. This is an ongoing IEP. If they don't settle it at mediation or facilitated IEP, then after having all of this action, eventually a school can say, we've had our action, you've contested, we have had meetings about this, you had a mediation, we are going to implement this ongoing IEP because we must give service to your child. And if you are still in disagreement, then you would need to move to due process hearing. And we will talk about due process. Now we will cover the dispute process. So what to do if you don't agree. So a complaint is a procedural violation. So issues you would file a complaint about are items that are typically in writing an idea in Article 7 or in the student's IEP. So you read the IEP or the regulations to see if you find it in writing, okay? So if the answer is yes, then you ask yourself, is the school doing what is written? And if the answer is no, then parent has an option of filing a complaint. That is with the Office of Special Education. You will find the website to file a complaint on iChamp at the DOE's website. And so some examples of issues which could be the basis of a state complaint include things like failure to conduct an evaluation within the required time frame, those 50 days, or by that third birthday, or failure to implement a service to give speech services as they're supposed to be given, or services written and agreed upon the IEP. So think of a complaint as a procedural violation. The other two areas that you can think about a complaint are under child fine. The school does have a responsibility to look for students who might have disabilities. And if there was something going on so significant that the child could not access their faith. But in general, when you think about a complaint for under IDEA and Article 7, you think about a procedural violation. But it is really important to know that it is the best to try to preserve relationships if at all possible. Honestly, good communication that is open and honest is vital. It's essential that the school personnel understand how you see the problem, giving the school a chance to work it out before the complaint is filed if possible. And that could have positive impacts on the preservation of the parent-school relationship. We always encourage a family to call that teacher of record if you feel that IEP is not being followed. Meet again. Talk to that general ed teacher. And additionally, before filing a complaint, to go to your special education director to explain that you feel that services are not being given, the IEP is not being followed, whatever the concern is. We truly encourage you to have those meaningful and intentional discussions. Okay, resolving disputes. As I stated before, good communication is the best way to avoid disagreements. Be clear and concise and explain what concern you have. I have a concern that I do not know how I am to be aware that my student is getting services in the resource room. Could someone be signing his papers? How do I know my student is receiving speech services? Be clear and concise about what your concern is. Students have better outcomes when parents and schools work together, and it is best if those differences can be worked out. But the law does provide for formal dispute process. So when parents and school staff work together as partners, the educational outcome for students can be improved. When communication is good and parents and schools have a working relationship, it is easier to solve disputes. There's less tension and less stress. The best outcomes for the students usually occur when a good working relationship do exist. And as I stated before, we encourage parents to attempt to work out their differences with the school by communicating first. But what happens if the parent and school can't agree? There are informal and more formal options available to work through the differences. And this is part of what you find in your procedural safeguards, which is why it is so important to read them, why it is important to go through an Article 7 training on our website. So if a parent disagrees with the proposed IEP or any other area of disagreement, it is best to first attempt to resolve that dispute by reconvening a case conference. You can also meet with a public agency representative or request a facilitated IEP meeting. Keep in mind that unless a parent is going to move to a new school district, the parent, the student, and the school will probably be working together for a long time. And it's best to try to preserve that relationship whenever possible. If, however, you cannot come to an agreement, then there are dispute resolution steps available. Dispute resolution steps increase in complexity. And as we said before, it's best if you can solve it at the case conference table if possible. Parent can ask to meet with the staff with the authority to help resolve the disagreement. And many times that is the special education director. You can also have a facilitated IEP meeting. That is a voluntary process where the Indiana IEP Resource Center would be the one to facilitate the case conference. This often happens when the party feels like they have not been heard, okay? You can request a facilitated IEP meeting through the Indiana IEP Resource Center. It is voluntary though, and both school and family would have to agree. This step is not required by Article 7, but the Indiana Department of Education promotes this as an option that's available to both parent and school. So school can ask for a facilitated IEP meeting or a parent can. Mediation is the next step. It is more formal, confidential, and again, though voluntary action that allows parties to resolve disputes. So it is a meeting that is a little more formal, still trying to resolve their dispute. An impartial mediator helps the parties to express their views and understand the other side's views and position. The mediator does not take sides. They are professional mediators with special education training, but they are mediators. So they are there to mediate. They do not make recommendations. Their role is to try and bring both sides together in an agreement. A due process is different. It is an administrative law proceeding before an impartial independent hearing officer, and that hearing officer will be the one to make the decision. The hearing officer considers the information presented at the hearing and issues a written decision. There is, however, a resolution session or meeting that is similar to mediation before the due process moves forward. So it is an opportunity to resolve things prior to going to due process hearing. Please note that parent can file for just mediation, for mediation and due process, or just for due process. Additionally, it is important for a parent to know that they do not have to have an attorney at due process, but due process is rather complex. It is a legal, it has a legal nature to the proceedings. Of course, as I said, it's a suit, and the school will have an attorney present. A civil suit is a procedural safeguard that's available only after a due process hearing has been held. Any party disagreeing with the hearing officer's decision at due process hearing may file for a judicial review in civil court. That is totally unrelated. So once you go to a due process hearing, that decision is taken out of both the school's hands and the parent's hand, and the due process hearing officer is the one that is going to make the decision. So in summary, be confident in your role as a parent and prepare your thoughts well in advance and write them down so that when you come, you have your thoughts, your areas of concern, things that you feel are going well, what you want to discuss at that meeting, ready. Treat others with respect and expect the same in return. And know your options if you disagree. It truly is important to know what to do if you disagree. Additionally, just so you know, insource does have a volunteer program that allows volunteers to gain expertise, leadership skills, and more. Volunteers have many opportunities to be part of helping families throughout the state. And if you go to our website, you'll find out information about volunteers and who to contact, Beth Adamsberger. And we have a training program, and individuals who go through that can make decisions about what level of involvement they would like to take part in. Additionally, we have social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Please visit our website at insource.org. You may also call our central office directly. You can call me. You will find me on the website. You can email our central office at insource.org. And my email address is lpaddack, Paddack, at insource.org. And we invite you to join our online communities, following us on Facebook. We have webinars the first and third Thursday of every month, and we have a lot of really good information coming up. We have individuals from the Department of Education that are going to be talking about the dispute process, about what's required for schools for bullying. We have the Center for Deaf and Hard of Hearing coming to speak to us about services for students. So please visit our website, go to our calendar, and see what all we have in store for you. And here is that tiny QR code again. And Kelly, thank you so much for having me, and I hope this helps prepare families for their child's case conference.
Thank you, Lisa, so much. This is really, really good information for everyone to know about and to help prepare and to have a positive, communicative, IEP meeting with the schools and developing that relationship. It's, extremely important. And I can attest to Lisa. She has even helped my own family through the IEP process. And one of my favorite takeaways from Lisa that I learned from her is that word data. And once you start using that word with the schools and your TORs, they kind of perk up. They're like, okay, data. Yes, we need data. So that's
very true.
Very helpful.
Happy to help. Abigail, did you have any questions at all? She may not, and that is fine. And I very much appreciate you giving me the opportunity tonight to come and talk about some things you can do to prepare for your child's case conference.
All right. Thank you again.